that's the thing I like about Andrew Yang. I feel like whatever question you throw at him, he has a plan for that. He's a man with a plan.
There's an intellectual laziness going on in this country, and I think Andrew Yang agrees.
We don't value certain kind of jobs. We only value the kind of jobs that we think, like the tech jobs.
I'm scared of socialism as much as I'm afraid of capitalism. So today we're going to talk about Andrew Yang, the presidential candidate for 2020. Kimbra, you read his book, The War on Normal People? Is that what it is? War on Normal People?
The War on Normal People, yeah.
What do you have to say about that? What do you think?
It was really good. I mean, I learned a lot of things about him. You know, I of course followed him in the presidential campaign 2020, and I was kind of a late comer to the Yang gang, you know, but he soon won me over because I was like, who's that Andrew Yang guy, you know? And his big thing push for the race was, you know, freedom. He calls it freedom dividend, you know, universal basic income. And I would have voted for him. I really would have. I just thought he had a lot of great ideas, but it got me interested in what universal basic income was all about. And so I got his book, and it talks a lot about that, of course. And it's, you know, universal basic income isn't a new idea, as I'm sure you know. And they thought about it way back in the, Thomas Paine days, you know, in a different form. But actually, Richard Nixon, which I found really interesting when I was doing some research about him, actually had come up with a similar idea back in when he was running. No, actually, I believe he was president already, and he was going to propose it to Congress and Senate. And then at the last minute, he decided not to because.
If you like our videos, go ahead and click on like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thanks. Well, the House passed it twice. They passed a UBI twice in 1970 and 1971, but then it didn't go anywhere in the Senate. And so Nixon kind of but he was supportive of it.
Yeah, he was, which is rare, you know?
Yeah.
Because to me, it seems like a more liberal idea. I guess his thoughts were that, you know, it would actually be less expensive than the welfare state, because you would take out like all welfare and just give people this money. However, Andrew Yang's idea is a little different. He, I think, still proposes that you can have the welfare state, like if you're on welfare, you're getting food stamps and on everything else, you can choose that, or you can choose universal basic income. So it's not going to be both or either or. And you know, they're testing it in different areas right now. There's a pilot program in Oakland, which is similar. I think it's run through Zuckerberg's some kind of foundation through Facebook, a nonprofit organization. I believe their company's funding the money, but it's in Oakland, and they're giving a certain amount of people that are living under the poverty line $500 a month, and just I think it's like for a certain, like, I don't know, 2 years to see how it goes. And you know, Zuckerberg and even Elon Musk has mentioned that he thinks that's probably one of the ways we're going to have to go because of automation. One of the big things that Andrew Yang book talks about is automation. That's one of the big reasons why we need UBI, because of by the year, let's say 2023, we're going to have a lot of automated cars. Truck drivers will be the biggest industry that will be affected.
Right.
And then Lyft and Uber will probably follow suit. If you want to have driverless cars, if it all goes how these guys are predicting it. So I'm getting more, I'm getting more, becoming a proponent of it more. In the beginning, I was kind of like, I think I told you this before, like I was like, I don't know, I've become lazy. Like, oh, I get $1,400 coming in or whatever they decide on. But now I'm beginning to see the advantages of it. And also another good thing about it, Mark Zuckerberg is bringing this up, that his ideas are that it will give people freedom to, if they're not having to worry about their basic needs of food and shelter, entrepreneurial ideas may become more prevalent in that in America. You know, we have time to think about, like you and I are always trying to come up with entrepreneurial ideas. So we would benefit from it, you know. So and you know, America, that's their big thing, right? It's we're the land of the entrepreneurs. But if all goes like people are predicting, we're going to have a lot of people unemployed. So that's Andrew Yang's big
Yeah.
raison d'etre, as they say in this book, The War on Normal People. So anyway, I recommend the book. What do you think about Andrew Yang?
Well, I was a fan, but I was skeptical, and I was more of a Bernie Sanders supporter because I feel like he's been fighting for civil rights forever.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like a little bit the older generation is kind of out of touch with tech and everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's why Andrew Yang caught my eye early
Mm-hmm.
on in his campaign, because he was so forward thinking. He knows about tech. He has a lot of issues. Like, he wasn't, the freedom dividend was his main one, but he had
Sure.
so many, he had given thought to so many different
Yeah,
issues
definitely.
and things that would make our lives, our day in, day out, daily lives better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you knew Mike Gatto. I don't think he's in politics anymore, but he was, I think, a state representative in California, in Glendale. And I really liked him for that reason too. I kind of started following him because he was just trying to make people's everyday life better,
Mm-hmm.
with policies that would improve, just your general day in, day out life. And I feel like Andrew Yang did that too. He really was paying attention to things. And I don't know if you heard this, but and I just read it maybe yesterday or last night. Eric Garcetti, the
Mm-hmm.
mayor of LA,
Mm-hmm.
has proposed the UBI in LA too as a
Really?
finance. Yeah.
Wow. A
There's a
lot of
guy
people
named
could use that for sure.
There's a guy named Patrick Bet David. He has a podcast called Valuetainment, or he does his own podcast too, and he was talking about it. And he was saying, he thought it wasn't a good idea because the surrounding towns, poor people, or he's kind of insinuating lazy people, will leave the
Mm-hmm.
surrounding towns in LA and go to LA to get that money,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll kind of clean up the towns of lazy people in the other towns. And I just really
Rid
don't
the
agree
towns
with.
of lazy people.
Yeah, yeah. Get all the lazy people out. I don't agree with that. I think, especially, California is so expensive and Los Angeles so expensive, that $500 is a drop in the bucket. It's not really going to do that much for anyone. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't blame someone for wanting, the extra $500. And I think it's going to be means tested for lower income people.
Right.
But I do think, I'm on the fence about UBI. I think what's coming is it's going to be necessary.
Mm.
And I do think, as a country, if we are, the United States of the people, by the people, for the people, then we're all entitled. I was reading again last week about the fossil fuel industry and how the fossil fuels, they're extracting from our land. Supposedly we all own the land and the resources of the country, and we're not getting a piece of it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like Andrew Yang's idea about data. We're not getting any, our data is being used and sold, and we're not getting anything back for it.
Right.
So I do feel like corporations have just, they're taking everything and not sharing the pot.
That's
Even with
true.
their employees, they're underpaying their
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
employees. So what I would rather see than a UBI is a requirement for every company to share the profits.
Mm.
I feel like if you're working for a company and you are part of making it successful, then you should get a piece of it. And I
Yeah.
just feel like profit sharing should be a requirement for every company. I just feel like, capitalism, there's the capitalism, socialism argument. And as I typically am, I see both sides, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of in the middle, because capitalism is a failure without socialism, because we've never had capitalism in its pure form, because it's a theory on paper that doesn't work in reality because of corruption. Because the idea is, if you have free markets, capitalism works. But
Mm-hmm.
free
Mm-hmm.
markets don't exist. They've never existed. They never will exist, because they're always tainted by somebody will corrupt it.
Sure.
So that's why we always need socialism. And now the top is, as we move further and further towards socialism, there's a lot of fear in that. And I agree. I'm scared of socialism as much as I'm afraid of capitalism. So I feel like if we want to keep capitalism, the capitalists need to stop being so greedy, and they need to understand that unless they have consumers to buy their products, then they're going to fail. Then capitalism will fail, and we'll end up being another country that goes towards socialism, and that will fail too.
Right.
So if we want to keep capitalism, thriving, then we have to have it's got to be regulated.
I totally agree. And the wealth disparity gap is so wide right now because of, the deregulation. And that's another thing that's only going to get worse and worse as we move forward. Few will get very rich, a lot. The job is, because of automation, it's been, gosh, was it 2000? I can't remember now. It was sent overseas, most of our jobs that have been, we've lost a lot of work that way too, because jobs that have been sent overseas.
Well, labor is not valued by capitalists. They do everything they can to try to pay as little as possible, to have as few employees as possible. Sure. So if we're not going to value labor, then that's another failure of capitalism. That's why that part has to be regulated, and why unions, they busted all the unions, and the unions got corrupted too. You give anybody power, and corruption seeps in. So that's why, I get on most of my friends that, just pay attention to the mainstream media. They don't do any further research, and they rely on the media to tell them the truth, what they believe to be true. And that's just laziness. And there's an intellectual laziness going on in this country. And I think Andrew Yang agrees. He's even criticized Barack Obama for things he did, because there's an intellectual laziness of people who they cheerlead the personality and not the policies of the person.
There's definitely an anti-intellectualism in America that's been going on for a long time. Also, another thing that Andrew Yang pointed out too was that we don't value certain kinds of work. Like, if you want to be a stay-at-home parent, we don't put value in that. And that's kind of, I think in Europe they're a little better about that, because they actually give you, the government does get involved, but they actually give you like a year, I believe it is, of like your salary that you would normally make at a job to stay at home to be a parent, because they see the value in that, a parent and a child being together, and that makes a better society. And I believe that's a good idea, because I don't believe typically it's the mother, but the child should have one parent that stays with them longer. There's a bonding that goes on, and we don't value certain kind of jobs. We only value the kind of jobs that we think, like the tech jobs and that, that kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, he brought up that the stay-at-home mother or father, if we are encouraging or requiring that both parents work to support a family, then who's raising the kids? And when we complain about the younger generation and how lazy they are, or lack of values or principles, well, why? Because they raised themselves, or the TV raised them. The TV is very toxic and poisonous. And then he also brought up, what was the other one? Oh, people that stay in an abusive relationship for money because they can't get out of it. And that's very common too. There's a lot of domestic violence, domestic abuse.
Another outcome of people not being able to afford to have kids or stay at home or what have you, is that a lot of people are not having as many kids too. And that's one reason why. And so our society is actually becoming, as we age, we're not going to have as many younger people to take care of us and feed into the Social Security. That's another offshoot of not valuing staying at home, because two people have to work, and they think, gosh, we're not going to have enough money to raise a kid. It's so expensive.
Yep.
So that's another thing.
That's very true. Very true. Yeah. There's, again, I support the UBI, but I don't think that's the solution. I think it's a Band-Aid, and he's talked about that too. That we need to see the bigger picture, and need to see, corporations are just going after cheap labor. So they're going from country to country, and using cheap labor and now expect us to buy their products when they're not employing us. So I think something needs to be done about that too. If you don't make the product here in the US, or, if you're not paying the people you're using our resources or whatever, expecting us to buy these products. And same with other countries. I feel like other countries should be involved too. I don't think their poor should be exploited either. I feel bad for them. So, I think capitalism needs to be reined in, and it usually gets reined in, but it takes, either violence or a real uproar. And I hate to see that coming, but I feel like that's what's coming. I mean, we already have some of it right now, but I feel like that's what will come. I mean, if you read history, that's what's always come. That's what's always happened when we got such wealth disparity,
Mm-hmm.
inequality. Then people that have nothing to lose resort to violence. And why do we have to do that again? Those people, they know better. They know that that's what's coming. Our government knows that. And instead, I think they're protecting themselves. They're building underground bunkers and living in gated communities. Um, they're just trying to protect themselves from what might come. And that's really still going to result in death and violence, I think. And it's
Right.
not going to be pretty for anyone, even the people in the gated communities.
We're seeing a lot of that this year, 2020, the year that will go down in infamy.
Yeah. I mean, what else could go wrong? Please knock on wood.
I know it's like,
Jeez.
what are they? The locusts are going to be coming soon anytime. They're
I
saying.
know. I know. It's been crazy.
Well,
Crazy, crazy.
anyway, and getting back to Andrew Yang, I agree. He is very, I was impressed in the debates that I watched him in, how forward thinking, hip, smart, he just, whatever he threw at him, he answered it, and he's a
He's
sharp
the
guy.
future. Yeah, I think he's the future. He
He's
has
not
a
a kid, but
podcast called Yang Speaks.
right.
And two of my favorite guests that he did one with Anand Giridharadas, who
Uh-huh.
I also adore and I think is a future voice, or really a now voice, but
Mm-hmm.
hopefully they will be heard more in the future. And then Andrew Yang just did one with Marianne Williamson that I thought was really brilliant.
That would be
She was
good.
a little tough on him.
Mm.
Um, she was tough on him for not standing up to the Democrats more,
Mm.
but because Andrew Yang seems to think that he can infiltrate the Democratic Party and make
Mm-hmm.
changes from within,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Marianne Williamson is of the thinking that no, we have to upset the apple cart and change. I
Right.
think what will happen is the older generation has such a grip on the Democratic Party that they do need to be ousted,
Mm.
but I just don't see it happening. I think it's just going to
Right.
be a matter of they're going to have to age out,
Sure.
and end up retiring or getting voted out, because even they could be voted out. When people say they should have term limits,
Mm.
why do you need term limits? Or if you have an educated population, you just vote them out. But the
Mm.
population's not educated, they vote for the incumbent and the same
Right.
old person over and over, and that's how they get that grip on power. So
We
unless
seem to like the tried and true here in America. We're not willing to give someone like Andrew Yang or someone with different.
we're afraid
Um,
of change,
mm-hmm.
afraid of change. Well, and part of it is the older generation are the voters, and the younger
Mm-hmm.
generation doesn't vote.
Right.
And that's part of the problem. They're not educated on
Mm-hmm.
politics. So,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people voting that aren't educated, but the older generation is voting like it's 1980 instead
Mm.
of 2020. In 1980, what happened, what worked then doesn't work now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and Andrew Yang, he knows all that. He understands all that. He's talked about it. He believes in he calls it human-centered capitalism, where
Yes.
people matter
Yes.
more than profits, and the
Yes.
GDP is just a measurement of how corporations are doing, not how people
Mm-hmm.
are doing.
Mm-hmm.
He believes police should wear cameras.
I like
He's
that
against
idea.
police brutality. Oh, what else? Can you think of anything else? I mean, so many things.
And I believe I liked his healthcare plan. I read about it, and it was I believe he is for universal health care, but with options like a buy-in. He had a plan for that. That's the thing I like about Andrew Yang. I feel like whatever question you throw at him, he has a plan for that. He's a
Yeah,
man with a
yeah.
plan.
Yes, we like that. We like that. Yeah, I think I like to hear more from him. I'm not
Yes.
sure if he's a strong enough leader. He may grow into it. But I think
And
he's of the future.
yeah, I agree. And he's
There's room for him.
he's fairly young for a candidate, so he's got lots of time.
Mm-hmm.
I was when I went on his website, I believe it was his website, it was interesting because he was talking about how when Donald Trump announced his run for presidency, that's when he thought to himself, I'm going to run for president, because he felt like the people that Donald Trump were getting in his following that were going to vote for him were just the people that he needed to help, because the people that have lost their jobs and they're worried about a lot of things, that's the group that Donald Trump is targeting. And Andrew Yang thought, well, those are the people that are going to suffer the most from automation and all that. So that's what really got him going. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So I like him. I
Well,
think he's interesting.
it may take more hardship and more
Mm-hmm.
changes before we open up and embrace someone like Andrew Yang.
Mm. Right.
Like 2020, my view of 2020 is just that spiritually we're being sent a message, and I think Marianne Williamson took on this too.
Mm.
We're being sent a spiritual message that we're doing everything wrong,
Mm.
and we still are. We continue to
Mm.
do it, and I think you're just gonna, Oprah Winfrey, I think she used to say, you get that little whisper in your ear, and if you ignore it, then you get a slap on the face, and if you ignore it, then you get a brick on your head.
Right.
And I feel like that's really where we are. We're just
Right.
ignoring what needs to happen. We just have to shake things up and do things differently, and people are so afraid to do something differently because
I know.
they're so afraid of socialism. But what's going to happen is capitalism is failing, so we're going to end up with socialism, and that's scary too. So they need to, understand. I just wish people would read more history.
We've already got socialism in little bits and pieces, with
and
our.
A lot of that doesn't work. Some of it does. That can be improved on too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those systems can be
Mm-hmm.
improved. They haven't worked over time. They're again band-aids, and the corporations who our politicians work for, the corporations are supporting these socialist policies to satisfy people. I call it throwing crumbs out to the peasants,
Mm-hmm.
to keep people satisfied enough that they won't
Mm-hmm.
revolt,
Mm-hmm.
instead of really asking for meaningful change where everybody will have an opportunity at doing better.
Right.
So
That's
maybe
true.
the UBI is the Band-Aid that we need, the bridge maybe to the next level. Every economic system has changed. Capitalism will die out eventually, and something will replace it, a version of it, because we've had slavery and then feudalism and now capitalism, and it always grows and morphs into being something better. So capitalism will also grow into something better that's more fair, more just, where more people are involved. But I do think some people, they don't want to think for themselves. I think there is a laziness of people that
Well, I believe in America we've had it so good for so long. We've had a very well. When I was growing up, I feel like it was a real prosperous time, and even my parents, when they came to California in the late 70s, they were like, oh, this is the land of the my stepfather was saying like jobs were just like handed out like candy, and
well, and they were well-paying jobs. They were good-paying jobs. Yeah,
exactly. And so we've had it good for a long time, and we still are a good country, a great country where we can learn from this. I hope. I mean, I get a little scared when I see what's going on, and the anti-intellectualism, the anti-education, the anti-science, the anti-everything right now. And but I really just hope that we better ourselves. We can become our better selves. And programs like what we're doing, it's like we want to examine things. We want people to think for themselves. And I want more like Gen Z, Gen Y people to think for themselves, especially right now.
Well, and think outside of the box, because I feel like our generation and the generation before us are a little stuck. Like they just, and as you get older, you do get stuck. I know.
You get more complacent sometimes.
Yeah. And, you living in California and Los Angeles, and I lived there almost 30 years, most of my adult life. So I feel like there's an energy there and a creativity, and it fosters new ideas and new thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm living in this little town now in Wyoming that's very much like my hometown where I grew up in Ohio. And in these little towns, they don't want change. They don't embrace anything that's not, what's considered patriotic is anything that we've always done. We've always done it that way. That's the way we should always keep doing it. And they're just not open to trying something new. And I feel like that's holding us back a lot. So we need to hear all voices. And
exactly. I can feel for them in a little bit. I understand a little bit, you don't want, if your life is good for you, you don't want change, but life is not good for so many people. So that's why we have to,
Right.
So,
Andrew, and there are bad things about, you don't want to change too fast, and you don't want to jump off the cliff. And, so there is a good balance. They do hold us back a little bit, but progressives are, I feel like, being completely stifled right now. And it's holding everyone back. And I feel like one day everybody's going to wake up. It's going to be 2020. We might have Groundhog Day 2020. Like
Oh
it'll be
God, please
2020
no.
over and over and over. And finally people are going to go, okay, let's try something different because they're exhausted
I know,
of
right? It's like,
the drama and the trauma and the bad things happening, that I feel like it's going to finally wear on everyone. But I just wish it would happen sooner rather than later so we can move
I
forward.
know. The one good
Like,
thing about this whole pandemic is that for me, it's just made me introspective, and I've had to think, and luckily I'm okay, so that I can, look and see what do I want, when I should focus on the important things in life. And I hope that some people have come away with that perspective as well. Like,
yeah.
Makes you really focus on what you need to work on. So
Yeah,
if you,
I feel like the universe is saying, slow down, stay
mhm,
home,
mhm,
stop, getting on that treadmill, the rat race, and go, 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 go. Spend time with your family, reevaluate, your income and what's
mhm,
important in your life and your home, and look in the mirror.
mhm,
And so I do think we're being sent a message, and I just feel like enough people haven't gotten it yet,
mhm.
but they'll
Exactly.
get it eventually. That brick will start falling on people's heads.
I know.
So
So I think that what we can get out of this is we need to embrace more progressive thinking, like Andrew Yang, right?
yep,
AOC people. I mean,
yep.
taking at least AOC. She's another one that's kind of pushed everything to the real left, and then hopefully somewhere it'll come where somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, the middle has moved right. So we're not left at all. The left is the
yeah,
middle.
I
We've
know.
just, the every election, when they say vote for the lesser of two evils, we keep being dragged to the right. And, I support some things in that the right believes. But I feel like we've just become controlled by corporations is really the thing that bothers me the most, that I feel like is our biggest detriment, our biggest problem, is that we have surrendered and that's what I mean by a lot of people don't want to think for themselves. They just want to let somebody else make the decision, let somebody else take care of it. What was it? I think it could be Marianne Williamson, I might be wrong, but she said we're like a country of children of alcoholics.
Hmm.
And we're codependent, and we don't think for ourselves or take care of ourselves, and we just have this abusive parent taking
Mm-hmm,
care of
mm-hmm,
things. And then I saw something else that said Republicans, not to beat up on anyone, but we're all damaged. Like, our country is just emotionally damaged. And the Republicans are like, they're siding with the alcoholic father who beats them.
hmm.
Like, they love him the way he beats them and abuses them, and they don't realize it, and they still love their dad. And then the Democrats are siding with the mom of the alcoholic father, who
That's a funny
enables him
analogy.
and lies for him and
Mm-hmm.
covers up for him and allows it to keep going on. Like, oh, it's okay, let me wipe the blood off your face, you'll be fine, just get out there. And you know um and I thought that was a really good analogy of what's
Yeah,
happening and what's going on right now in the
right.
country. So
And the overwhelming thing that I think is ailing our country is just greed to the nth degree. And
well, look, we grew up watching, I loved Dynasty. Do you remember that show? What was the other one? Dynasty. Was it Falcon Crest, where they were just about the rich? Then we had the lifestyles of the rich and famous. I loved, looking at those beautiful homes. Um, then I went to LA, moved to LA, and went to many of those homes in Beverly Hills, beautiful homes, got invited to parties in these beautiful mansions. And fortunately, having grown up in a little town in Ohio where money just really wasn't be all end all. I mean, it was important. You have to have money to get by, but it was never a priority. It was just, you get your job and you work and make your living. So I never got sucked into that lifestyle, or I was never impressed by it. And I feel like we really went off the deep end, just admiring people like Donald Trump. I loved Donald Trump. I used to watch The Apprentice. I loved him. I loved The Apprentice. I hung on his every word until I remember one time one of the teams went to him and said that the other team was cheating by spying on them.
mm-hmm,
And when I lost respect for Donald Trump, he said, well, that's how you do business. That's business. They're spying on you to learn about what you're doing. And I was like,
right.
did anyone else hear this? Did anyone hear? Look, oh my gosh. And I was appalled and horrified, because I had been raised with such principles and lived by my principles, that I felt like, and as time has gone on, I feel like I don't live in the world that I was raised to believe that I
Right.
live in. And I think it's because of what you were saying is greed has become, money has become the number one priority. And it doesn't even matter how you get it. It doesn't matter if you lied, cheated, and stole to get it. If you're rich, you've made it. You
Or
are to be
remember like
admired.
that movie that Michael Douglas did, was it
Greed
Wall
is good.
Street?
Wall Street.
Yeah, that's like, that
Yep.
was, the mantra for
Yeah.
Americans for like, what, 10, 15, 20
Yeah,
years?
I think that was in the 80s that he did that movie, and that was the time period, when we were
Right.
growing and thriving, and
Yeah.
we were raised to believe that stuff. And I think our generation and our parents' generation still is holding on to that. They admire rich people. Well, if you're rich, you must be better. And of course, you and I have socialized and worked for and worked with and been around those kinds of people to realize they're not any smarter and they don't work harder. They
And
just leveraged what they had.
and not everything that glitters is gold, as I've learned.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, you're not, I always thought, being very wealthy, I felt sorry for some of the people because they always had to be on guard. Like one of the reasons that a lot of very wealthy people liked me in LA is that I never expected anything from them. I never wanted anything from them. I never asked anything. I was never impressed. I just, you're another person. How you treat me is how I judge you. I don't care about anything else. But I feel like they're always on guard because they never know if somebody wants to use them or get something from them. And then, they're always worried about some people taking from them because once you have a certain amount of money, you have to watch everybody's motives, worry about getting cheated or stolen from. And that's a layer of stress. That why do you want to do that to yourself? Why do you need to do that to yourself?
I know everybody when you get successful, people always feel like everybody wants something from me, so they get very guarded. And so when they're around someone like you, who's a regular person, it's very refreshing. So getting back to Andrew Yang, I want to say he is very refreshing.
Yes. And he ran in those circles too. Did you know that he used to do promotions in LA nightclubs?
No,
I think in Hollywood nightclubs he did some promoting.
Wow. Funny
so
thought.
he ran in those circles, or maybe it might have been New York, but I thought he said LA and Hollywood. I thought he said he did some nightclub promoting, and he's obviously a very likable guy and very, I think, genuine.
He's from upstate New York, and I have a lot of friends from upstate New York. So shout out to Rochester and Batavia, Schenectady. But I find that people from upstate New York, if I'm going to stereotype, are very down to earth. I've never met someone from upstate New York that is not down to earth. There's just this. It's kind of like the Midwest, they have this certain hometown thing. They're not flashy people for the most part.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I lived in New York City for a year, and I found that the people there were, they were real, but they were abrasive. Like they just, and that's where I think I got a little, it brought it out in me. I'm like, I can just say what I want and what I think. And, people, they might get mad at you, but they get over it. And it's like very much like that in New York. You just tell it like it is. And I think that's a little bit how Donald Trump is too.
Yes.
He's not a very educated man, obviously. He's not very,
well, he's educated. Right. He's educated supposedly. But I don't think he's not really
supposedly.
He's educated in a formal way, but I feel like he never really took any of that education in. I mean, he didn't.
I don't think he absorbed it. Yeah, I don't think he's very highly intelligent.
Exactly.
But he's, one of those down to home, tell it like it is. Sure. This is the way it is, and I think that's why his base likes him because they he lies too. He lies a lot, but he comes across as if this unpolished, just down to earth guy that I'm just going to tell it like it is. I'm just going to tell it how I see it. And he does tell it how he sees it, but sometimes how he sees it is not truthful. So,
and also there is something refreshing to being politically incorrect. And he's, he's that way. And people like that. People that like him like that. They feel like he's, he's going to tell it like it is. He's going to drain the swamp, but it's like he's filling the swamp with his own people.
He's hired in the swamp monsters. But Andrew Yang, I hope that he will, if Joe Biden wins, I'm hoping that Andrew Yang has a place in his cabinet or gets a position where he can influence, because Joe Biden's a very old man. He's been around a very long time. He has told people things will not change, and that's not really good. We do want change. So hopefully, and maybe, I'm not a big fan of him or Kamala Harris, but maybe her being younger too.
Sure.
And, secretly, as a woman, how cool would it be to see a Black woman as our, as a president?
VP,
so,
sure.
And I do not support identity politics, and I do not support her because of that. But if I don't have a choice and it happens, I'll be like, well, at least there's that. At least we got our first woman president.
And I think we've said this already, but we haven't seen the last of Andrew Yang. And I think moving forward, if Biden wins, he will. I think he'll play some kind of role in the presidency somehow. I don't know what.
Hopefully, he'll be in the cabinet, and then he'll run again in 2024.
Yeah, I'm sure
it would be great to see a dream Andrew Yang running for president with AOC as the VP. And then,
wow, that would be really
here's her run for president. And wouldn't that be I think it would just be crazy. It would be a dream. It would be such a turn of events,
that's an alternate universe.
Yeah. But it's going to happen. It will eventually. That's why a little bit I'm accepting what's happening right now, because I know there's no other choice. We get Donald Trump or Joe Biden. I'm not happy with either one of them. So I've kind of resigned myself to that because I don't have a choice. But I do feel hopeful for the future, because like I said, eventually these people are just going to, they're going to go away.
Sure.
So,
well, I think we can wrap it up by saying that we're excited for the future, and we're we have a lot of trepidation, but we are excited, right? We're hoping. We have hope.
Yeah. I'm nervous for the immediate future, but optimistic for the long-term future. And glad that Andrew Yang, big fan of him. I think both of us can say we are. And glad that he's on the scene, and he hasn't, he didn't just walk away. Now he's joined the podcast. Anybody that's watching, we would love to hear what you think about it. The Yang Gang, please give us your opinion. I hope you're all watching Yang Speaks, Andrew Yang's podcast, because he's got a lot of really good guests, and he still has good things to say. So I don't think he's going anywhere. Yeah. And we hope one day he'll be on our podcast. Andrew Yang, if you're listening, we are fans, and we welcome you to come by anytime, and eventually maybe you'll be asking us to be on our podcast. All right, we'll talk to you later, and we'll see you next time. Okay, bye. Bye.